Please be seated. There are much in today's passages. So I'm going to choose to talk about choice and reconciliation. In Sirach, an apocryphal book, the writer mentions choice or choose in each of the first 3 verses. We are given power to choose, and what we choose is what we will receive. The psalmist writes about a people choosing to do right and not being forsaken. Paul even alludes to this theme by rejecting Apollos or Paul and instructs us to choose God in Christ. Matthew then weaves this all together in a continuation of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus instructs us to choose to do the hard thing. As in going to someone you disagree with and working it out, tearing out your eye or cutting off your hand to make yourself right with God. Tough choices. God calls us to be reconciled not only with God, but with each other as well. Jesus, through these examples, shares with his disciples the negative impact of unresolved and human conflicted relations, and offers a method for accountability and a path towards mending broken relationships. For real reconciliation to occur, we must do more than identify the offense. We have to choose to value the relationship that has been compromised. This requires an openness of our heart to engage in dialogue and to seek the restoration of that particular relationship. God's desire for us is to live in relationship with one another. When our relationships are broken, other areas of our lives often become out of whack, off balance, to the extent that it oftentimes impacts our ability to function, to live in the world. Broken relationships separate us from one another and God. At times, we are oblivious to the impact of our actions on the life of others. Our intent may be genuine or without malice, yet the impact to others may still be devastating. And pride and fear often play an important piece, impeding us from reconciling with those we love and who love us, and from those who differ from us. As Christians, we are called to love our neighbors as ourselves. We are called to build bridges, not walls. In the current state of affairs in our nation, a difference of opinion at the political and ethical level has caused a visible divide among families, friends, and communities. It has become a common occurrence to hear friends defriending each other's pages in social media as a result of political debates or opposing points of view about relevant and challenging topics. How can we find common ground in the midst of our differences? How can we, even during challenging and uncertain times, create spaces for dialogue and reconciliation? Jesus came to this world to reconcile us with God. It is that ministry of reconciliation that encourages us to create spaces for healthy and productive dialogue. It is that ministry of reconciliation that urges us to remain faithful to our vocation of love, where we reject the sin while embracing the sinner. Author and researcher Brené Brown shared a cartoon about empathy versus sympathy at a conference in 2013. Brown shared that empathy feels connection, while sympathy drives disconnection. She describes empathy as the ability to take on the perspective of another person while staying out of judgment, recognizing the emotions in other people and being able to communicate that. Brene further states that empathy is a choice, and it is a vulnerable choice. Having empathy for those with whom we differ provide us an opportunity to listen attentively to their perspectives, creating spaces for holy conversations that lead to reconciliation or even positive changes in the midst of basic and profound disagreements in ideology. We can choose to nurture our divides and remain in a state of tension and dissension, or we can decide to be open to the movement of the Spirit and focus on that which unites us, God's love for humanity, and work together through our disagreements. Now, Chris and I have been married for 33 years now. And anyone who knows us really well knows that we tend to argue frequently. It's just who we are. While in the Navy, early on in our marriage, we were given the designation as the couple that would be divorced first. Well, everyone here is a witness that they just got that wrong. The truth is, unfortunately, besides one other couple who we stay very closely attached to, all those others predictors of our demise are now divorced. After a number of years, I think it was my second year of being ordained, I ran into one of my divorced Navy buddies, and we checked in, and we felt like we had 20 years ago. But when he found out I was still married, he sort of said with an expectant look on his face and a little bit of sadness, he says, "How did you and Chris do that?" Because he remembered how we were. And I offered him a few stories, but one I think really sticks to today's lesson. And I told him this story. I said, one night Chris and I were engaged in yet another heated and engaged conversation, arguing, and I reached the point of no return. And so I decided to put my suitcase on my bed and pack it up and leave. But while I was packing, Chris took out her suitcase and put it beside my suitcase. And she started packing. And I looked at her and looked at the suitcase and I said, "What in the are you doing? Where in the world are you going?" And Chris responded in a very angry tone, "I don't know. I'm going wherever you are going." She taught me a lot that night. When we disagree, when we find ourselves on the other side of an issue, our disagreements, personal, professional, religious, or political, are not sufficient ground to separate us. We are bonded together by something greater. Avoidance of contact is a defense mechanism we use to evade our responsibility to foster reconciliation and unity. Reconciliation is hard work. It is holy work. Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, preached in Guatemala in August of 2011, and he shared in his sermon this quote, "The gift of the church to the world is reconciliation. We have been given it as a gift for ourselves so that we may know God, and we have been given it to learn." Friends, that is what we are here for in this time, to help reconcile one to another. As the church, I believe we have a unique opportunity to become bridge builders during this time in our country. We have a chance to exercise our prophetic voices in unique and powerful ways, at the same time that we spread and teach the gift of reconciliation in our country. Jesus, our model, faced confrontations with determination and compassion. It is a healthy and necessary balance to mend and maintain challenging relationships. Jesus' determination ensured the dignity of every human being. His compassion showed God's love to those who were difficult to love. It is my prayer, it is my hope that we may all find a holy balance in these challenging times to maintain a reconciling tone while challenging the injustices against God's children in a way that fosters dialogue and builds bridges. And I know that is not an easy task, but it is one that each one of us has been called to.